Otherwise she would grow blind. For 2 years she wears the hat and lives in a hut by herself, although she is allowed to see other people. At the end of 2 years a man takes the hat from her head and throws it away. In the Bilkula or Bellakula tribe of British Columbia, when a girl attains puberty, she must stay in the shed which serves as her bedroom, where she has a separate fireplace. She is not allowed to descend to the main part of the house, and may not sit by the fire of the family. For 4 days she is bound to remain motionless in a sitting posture. She fasts during the day, but is allowed a little food and drink very early in the morning. After the 4 days' seclusion, she may leave her room, but only through a separate opening cut in the floor, for the houses are raised on piles. She may not yet come into the chief room. In leaving the house, she wears a large hat, which protects her face against the rays of the sun. It is believed that if the sun were to shine on her face, her eyes would suffer. She may pick berries on the hills, but may not come near the river or sea for a whole year. Were she to eat fresh salmon, she would lose her senses, or her mouth would be changed into a long beak. Amongst the Tlingit or Thlinkit or Kulosh Indians of Alaska, when a girl shows signs of womanhood, she used to be confined to a little hut or cage, which was completely blocked up with the exception of a small air-hole. In this dark and filthy abode she had to remain a year, without fire, exercise, or associates. Only her mother and a female slave might supply her with nourishment. Her food was put in at the little window. She had to drink out of the wing-bone of a white-headed eagle. The time of her seclusion was afterwards reduced in some places to 6 or 3 months, or even less. She had to wear a sort of hat with long flaps, that her gaze might not pollute the sky, for she was thought unfit for the sun to shine upon, and it was imagined that her look would destroy the luck of a hunter, fisher, or gambler, turn things to stone, and do other mischief. At the end of her confinement, her clothes were burnt, new ones were made, and a feast was given, at which a slit was cut in her underlip parallel to the mouth, and a piece of wood or shell was inserted to keep the aperture open. Among the Konyags, an Eskimo people of Alaska, a girl at puberty was placed in a small hut in which she had to remain on her hands and feet for 6 months. Then the hut was enlarged a little so as to allow her to straighten her back, but in this posture she had to remain for 6 months more. All this time she was regarded as an unclean being with whom no one might hold intercourse. When symptoms of puberty appeared on a girl for the first time, the Guaranis of southern Brazil on the borders of Paraguay used to sew her up in a hammock, leaving only a small opening in it to allow her to breathe. In this condition, wrapped up and shrouded like a corpse, she was kept for 2 or 3 days, or so long as the symptoms lasted, and during this time she had to observe a most rigorous fast. After that she was entrusted to a matron, who cut the girl's hair and enjoined her to abstain most strictly from eating flesh of any kind until her hair should be grown long enough to hide her ears. In similar circumstances, the Chiricuanos of southeastern Bolivia hoisted the girl in her hammock to the roof, where she stayed for a month. The 2nd month the hammock was let halfway down from the roof, and in the 3rd month old women armed with sticks entered the hut and ran about striking everything they met, saying they were hunting the snake that had wounded the girl. Among the Matacos or Matagayos, an Indian tribe of the Gran Chaco, a girl at puberty has to remain in seclusion for some time. She lies covered up with branches or other things in a corner of the hut, seeing no one and speaking to no one, and during this time she may eat neither flesh nor fish. Meantime a man beats a drum in front of the house. Among the Yuracares, an Indian tribe of eastern Bolivia, when a girl perceives the signs of puberty, her father constructs a little hut of palm trees near the house. In this cabin he shuts up his daughter so that she cannot see the light, and there she remains fasting rigorously for 4 days. Amongst the Macusis of British Guiana, when a girl shows the first signs of puberty, she is hung in a hammock at the highest point of the hut. For the first few days she may not leave the hammock by day, but at night she must come down, light a fire, and spend the night beside it, else she would break out in sores on her neck, throat, and other parts of her body. So long as the symptoms are at their height, she must fast rigorously. When they have abated, she may come down and take up her abode in a little compartment that is made for her in the darkest corner of the hut. In the morning she may cook her food, but it must be at a separate fire and in a vessel of her own. After about 10 days, the magician comes and undoes the spell by muttering charms and breathing on her and on the more valuable of the things with which she has come in contact. The pots and drinking vessels which she used are broken, and the fragments buried. After her first bath, the girl must submit to be beaten by her mother with thin rods without uttering a cry. At the end of the second period she is again beaten, but not afterwards. She is now clean, and can mix again with people. The Indians of Guiana, after keeping the girl in her hammock at the top of the hut for a month, expose her to certain large ants, whose bite is very painful. Sometimes, in addition to being stung with ants, the sufferer has to fast day and night, so long as she remains slung up on high in her hammock, so that when she comes down she is reduced to a skeleton. When a Hindu maiden reaches maturity, she is kept in a dark room for 4 days, and is forbidden to see the sun. She is regarded as unclean; no one may touch her. Her diet is restricted to boiled rice, milk, sugar, curds, and tamarind without salt. On the morning of the 5th day she goes to a neighbouring tank, accompanied by 5 women whose husbands are alive. Smeared with turmeric water, they all bathe and return home, throwing away the mat and other things that were in the room. The Rahri Brahmans of Bengal compel a girl at puberty to live alone, and do not allow her to see the face of any male. For 3 days she remains shut up in a dark room, and has to undergo certain penances. Fish, flesh, and sweetmeats are forbidden her. She must live upon rice and ghee. Among the Tians of Malabar, a girl is thought to be polluted for 4 days from the beginning of her first menstruation. During this time she must keep to the north side of the house, where she sleeps on a grass mat of a particular kind, in a room festooned with garlands of young cocoa-nut leaves. Another girl keeps her company and sleeps with her, but she may not touch any other person, tree, or plant. Further, she may not see the sky, and woe betide her if she catches sight of a crow or a cat. Her diet must be strictly vegetarian, without salt, tamarinds, or chilies. She is armed against evil spirits by a knife, which is placed on the mat or carried on her person. In Cambodia, a girl at puberty is put to bed under a mosquito curtain, where she should stay 100 days. Usually, however, 4, 5, 10, or 20 days is thought enough, and even this in a hot climate and under the close meshes of the curtain is sufficiently trying. According to another account, a Cambodian maiden at puberty is said to "enter into the shade." During her retirement, which, according to the rank and position of her family, may last any time from a few days to several years, she has to observe a number of rules, such as not to be seen by a strange man, not to eat flesh or fish, and so on. She goes nowhere, not even to the pagoda. But this state of seclusion is discontinued during eclipses,